Good evening, Gills fans. Welcome back to a second edition of Gills in the Blood TV this evening. Myself and Stocky, unfortunately, sat in a car. Factory was closed after the question and answer session that we just attended, so you'll have to bear with us. But really good night, wasn't it?
Yeah, we enjoyed it. It was a bit of a slow starter, wasn't it? To be honest, I thought Mr. Scally, Evans, Rayner might have said a bit more at the start, and then it led on to the questions. But literally, Scally just went, "The floor's yours," and I think everyone was a bit like,
"Oh," and no one put their hand
yeah.
up.
And then there was an awkward silence, and then I think the first question, tongue in cheek, someone asked, "Are we going to win the Kent Cup this year?"
They did, and I think Paul Rayner took that one, didn't he?
Yeah, he said that obviously they're looking to progress. There's going to be a sprinkling of youngsters as well as first teamers that aren't getting minutes. We just discussed it.
Yeah, we just had a chat about thinking about going, and Dover away on Tuesday the 10th of March, isn't it? Probably a mixture of youngsters and first teamers that haven't played too much in the next two league fixtures.
Yeah, it was a slow starter really, wasn't it? Because the next few questions was about kids for £1 and
someone moaning about Gordon Road
stand and the
wheelchairs
facilities there, wheelchairs in the Medway. So it actually took probably about 15-20 minutes to actually get onto football chat. And where's the first ones? Yeah, Evans was asked if he was expected to be on course or whether they're exceeding expectations or not. And he actually said that
he was disappointed.
Yeah,
he said he thinks we're a bit beyond where we could be, didn't he?
Yeah.
Didn't he allude to Tranmere and Blackpool early part of the season when we threw away 2-goal leads? He
said we'd given pathetic points away, and then he mentioned the two teams. You just said Blackpool at home, away to Tranmere. But yeah, there's a few different questions. Someone asked, where do we finish next year in the Championship?
Was that the lad who said... oh no, that was, who was it that said, and to quote a former Crawley player?
No, that's someone else.
Oh, that was a bit later, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That did get that raised a laugh from the crowd.
But Rayner, nice and composed, basically kind of the standard assistant manager answer. They don't look too far ahead, just basically said they've got to get there first and they're looking to progress. Scally said quite a few times actually during tonight's session that there's been bad football over the last few years. I thought he spoke quite candidly and honestly about the performance on the pitch over the past few years. And although he wasn't slagging anyone off as such, he said that the appointments he's made at the time felt right. However, obviously in hindsight, as per a lot of things, they weren't right.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I thought they both spoke
I thought all three of them spoke really well during the whole evening. I think they answered what they could, didn't they? In fairness, there wasn't too many intrusive questions, was there? Which I think got out of the way at the first one.
It was a totally different vibe to the summer. I turned up, I wasn't really sure what to expect tonight because in the summer, obviously, Evans come in. A lot of people were unsure. A lot of people had their doubts.
Us included.
Us included, yeah. But I think Evans has answered a lot of them doubts by the performances on the pitch. So I can see why Scally done it. It appears that he wants a regular fans forum, and I don't see the harm in having a night every so often.
It's just a harmless evening. It's informative without telling us stuff that we don't need to know as football fans, and it was good fun at the bottom. Yeah, that's how the club feels at the moment, isn't it? I think it's good fun being a Gillingham supporter, and we've not had that for probably 3 years.
But even some of the stuff that Mr. Scally was saying just about the wages in football, the amount of figures being banded around, he's quite concerned at the way football's going. And
didn't he describe Leagues 1 and League 2 as graveyard of football at the moment? And he quoted some figures. Lincoln and Southend.
Yeah.
Said that Lincoln lost 2.24 million in the last financial year. And that's bearing in mind that includes that cup run to the 5th round and they got promoted. And I think they might have got to a EFL Trophy final in that time as well.
Yeah, possibly.
And Southend as well, wasn't it, as well? That was staggering.
But even the Championship, because one of the questions was asked, would he rather get promoted into the Championship or take
good money for
Ogilvy and Tucker? He basically said he obviously wants the club to get as high as possible. However, he is worried about getting in the Championship. I think the figures he quoted was turnover at the moment is 7 million.
I think it got up to 20 million, wasn't it?
Yeah, about 18 million, so would double. But obviously, they'd have to keep within their means, because he said at the moment the 24 clubs between them in the Championship, they're at a loss between them of 700 million.
700 million in a year between 24 clubs, which again is absolutely frightening.
And even the clubs that then get promoted, they're not making that money back in their single Premier League season.
No, I think the word that stuck out for me was unsustainable. He used that word quite a lot, didn't he? But that wasn't just the Championship. Going back to Southend, he said Southend have lost £3 million in the last financial year, and you can understand now just from that comment why they're in the state that they're in, and they're going into League Two, and I can't see them getting straight back out.
No. Evans does seem very shrewd, though. There was another point that I picked up on. I can't remember at what point the question was asked, but during the answer, he said that we've got almost like a partnership with Lille. And he's
that was an interesting one. I think that's been mentioned before, but not in so much detail.
Yeah, but he's taken Steve Evans out there, and they've met the guy in charge, and he said they've got players capable of coming over and coming on loan into our team. But Mr. Evans, if he hasn't seen them play, he doesn't want them. And
no, that seems to be the thing with Steve, that he's very hands-on, isn't he? I don't think he goes and signs people based on a video or an agent telling him, or another coach telling him, or another manager. He basically goes to look at them, watches them firsthand, and then has a chat regarding what they want and working out what type of character they are, which I think is brilliant. So
yeah, one of the questions asked was, there's a few asked about Jack Tucker in all fairness, but one of them was how good Jack Tucker can become.
That's me.
Was that your question?
Yeah, that was my written question. I did tell you that at the time.
Oh, okay.
You was too busy putting your hand up and getting ignored.
Yeah, I had my hand up for so long, it was unreal. So Evans said he had every attribute to play Championship level. He said he could actually play Prem under 23, but thinks his development would go backwards. And he compared him to a lad from Leeds, Ben White.
Yeah. Who apparently was subject to a £15 million bid from Liverpool. I don't know if that was in January or in the summer. But didn't he say that at the corresponding age, he thinks Jack's further ahead?
Yeah.
So
he also said he was due to be released in the summer, Jack Tucker, but was allowed to train with the first team. And he said, Evans said if he was the manager of a Championship club, the first thing he would do would be coming back to try buy Tucker and Ogilvie. And he actually praised Paul Scally as well for saying, by saying the day before transfer deadline day, a bid come in of £1 million for Jack Tucker.
That must have been January then, surely. That must have been the January window, wasn't it? Because they weren't in the team in the summer.
Yeah, sorry, what did I say? Summer?
No, you just said the transfer
window.
window.
Right, sorry, yeah, January transfer window. For £1 million, which was rejected, so fair play. Wasn't too much talk tonight on new ground and investors, but Scally said he's still meeting people. He said that they've been in Burton, and then
he said he had to go to Burton in the morning, then he got a train up to Birmingham, and then took a night flight to Dubai.
Yeah.
Then met the geezer in the evening, right through the night. Then got on a flight the next evening to Bangkok or Beijing.
Like yeah.
And then flew home on the day after that, and said was 32 hours of flying in 3 days, he said, didn't he? So, and Steve Evans, in fairness, backed him up and said it's not a case of if he's out there and nothing happens in terms of finances, he doesn't just stay out there. He's straight on a flight back home or back somewhere else and trying to make things happen. But it's stuff that's been spoken about at the previous forum. It's been mentioned on social media for years, and it's been bandied about in various brochures. But take of it what you will, I suppose, because it's not something that needs to be spoken about in great depth.
No, it kind of does sound like that the stadium isn't really going to happen unless an owner comes in. That's the impression.
Didn't Paul Scally describe it as like the railway line thing? He said that the team and the other part of it are on parallel lines, but not exactly at the same stage, and it's whether you get to the Championship first to fund the stadium, or you take a chance on funding the stadium, but then you could risk staying where you are or getting relegated, and then the lights go out. Hello. Live TV. But yeah, so it's basically stuff that's ongoing. We know that.
Yeah. Question about goal scorers. Basically, someone said that we'd lost a lot of goals in the team, which I think we all know, but it's a different type of team this year. Defensively, we're stronger, so we're not having to score as many to win games, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think Steve disagreed with the point about you have to score lots of goals to win games, because he said, well, no, you don't. If you keep a clean sheet, you only need one. And that's probably been one of our biggest success stories of the season is 13 clean sheets. And then didn't someone else ask about the same group of defenders, effectively.
Yeah, that was Luke Naylor just in front of us.
Yeah, it was.
That was a very good question, actually. He mentioned that point, that it's pretty much the same defence, but they seem totally different. And Steve Evans gave Paul Rayner and his coaching a lot of praise. Basically said that he's just been working them as a unit, getting them higher up the pitch. And Evans also mentioned O'Keefe, O'Connor and Jones for providing that stability in front of them as well. And
yeah, they've all been really weird. Didn't he keep referring to Paul Rayner as head coach as opposed to assistant manager? Which was interesting, obviously, because the fashionable thing is to be a head coach / manager and then have an assistant. But it seems there that we've got a manager and a head coach. How very hipster.
A few other questions asked about out of contract players and players that have gone out on loan. Have they got a future with us, basically? He said he knows the majority of his plans, but obviously things could change. I suppose if we get promoted, maybe the players that have gone out on loan won't feature. If we're in League One, he might need them.
Yeah, he made the point and said that obviously with such a big 11 games that people could end up changing his mind in a positive or negative manner, didn't he? He alluded to the fact that someone could stand up and be a hero, or someone might melt under the pressure of these big games, and that could change his mind in that sense. I don't know who the players out of contract are. Max Amar, Brandon Hanlon stand out. I'm not sure. I'll have to have a look at that one.
Yeah.
Probably loads again.
He thinks 75 points are going to be needed for the playoffs and to go on an unbeaten run of 22-23.
It's going to be one hell of an end of a season, isn't it, boys?
But
I'd still think we're going to come up just a little bit short.
Yeah, but
we're enjoying it, aren't we? That's the main thing.
Yeah. And yeah, that's about it, really. I think Evans and Rayner was asked about their future if a big club came in. Scally says that he loves working with them both, and they've done a tremendous job. Evans said that a big club had already come in for him, and
yeah, we didn't really hear that, did we? We spoke and then sort of went, like he alluded to the fact that a big club had come in January. It must have been, and they said no flatly. So
they said they bought into a project, and on a personal basis, Rayner's settled down here. It seems that his family or his partner are down this way, so they don't want to move at the moment.
And I think Steve again bought into the fact that he's living in the Medway towns, isn't he? So he's around the fan base all the time, 7 days a week, so to speak, rather than if you detach yourself from it, maybe you don't have such a good idea of what's going on and what the supporters are thinking. So I think that's really good as well. And
I finally got to ask my question.
You did, after having your hand up for about 50 minutes.
Yep, I was like a statue. Which was, who was their players of the season? Mr. Scally went with Ogilvie, Rayner went with Max Amar, and Steve Evans went with Jack Tucker. No
surprises there. There's 3 defensive-based players. I think Jack Bonham probably could feel himself a bit harsh as well.
That's my player of the year so far, Jack Bonham.
Oh, because we had to put our hands up as well, didn't we? We did a vote at the end.
Well, it was a vote on
out of the 3 that they'd picked, and it was overwhelmingly Conor Ogilvie. But Max Amar's a good shout. He's been super consistent this year. I tweeted about his stats the other day, and ever present. It's only him and Jack Bonham that are ever present, and I think a couple of people replied and said it's probably his best season with us. I think it is, in terms of consistently playing football matches and consistently playing well in them football matches. And he looks like a captain now, doesn't he? I know Steve said about him not being vocal, and he didn't really want it when Steve went for him in the summer, but I don't think you have to always be a screamer or a holler or a shouter as a captain. I think sometimes, like Steve alluded to, again, you can lead by example by your own performance on the pitch, and people pick up on that and where you're standing and positioning yourself and stuff like that. And he's been first class for me. I've always liked him anyway. And
that was probably about it, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it all ended on a positive note, didn't it? Talking about we're all being allowed to dream and believe that we might get in the playoffs and might get in a championship.
But like you said, we were dubious to start off with. We were dubious in the summer. We spoke to Steve Evans at the forum on a one-to-one level in the summer, and we've done the same tonight. And
we said in the summer all we wanted was to go to football matches and watch us play well and watch us win football matches. So from that respect, you can't fault either of them. Steve Evans, Paul Rayner, Simon Royce, who's come in, Gary Haymond, Jim Russell, all the fitness and conditioning staff behind the scenes that work goes unnoticed. Malcolm, the kit man, I think the chairman deserves credit for January getting John Akindi in. Didn't Steve Evans mention that he's still not fully fit in terms of lacking match practice? So be interesting if he is nearly up to speed now, and hopefully he
Well,
can kick on,
he
because he's
can
only
always-
got 1 in 6.
You can get Charlie Cook off the bench as well.
One Charlie Cook, apparently. That was an amusing side note. Some poor old fella decided to talk about Charlie Cook getting more games, didn't he?
Oh,
And then
he's
looked all bemused when Steve Evans referred to him as Regan. So you might see him at the weekend.
Yeah.
Come on and score the winner, young Charlie Cook. There's also a question about, talking to young players, about the youth setup, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
Paul Rayner took that one, and he said there's 1 or 2 that are
He said there's
showing
1 or 2 that
real
are okay.
promise in
And
terms of could get to the top, in
Yeah.
terms of breaking into the first team, but he was very cautious with it when he, and said that they all in that group have got lots
yeah, I
to
mean,
learn.
obviously we don't see behind the scenes and things like that, but to be honest, I can't imagine that there's going to be too much of a transition from the youth team to first team. I think they're more likely to buy a player rather than try and develop someone. I might be wrong. But
Well, yeah, I mean, Jack Tucker's a prime example of them actually taking a chance on
Yeah.
someone, but then they did release 3 or 4 others. But I think that
But I
decision's
think
been
at the
vindicated.
moment they're not probably going to be looking, are they? Like, it's the wrong time, if you get what I mean. They're going to be concentrating solely on the first team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
That's
they can have a look at that in the
understandable.
summer when they come back in for pre-season training, can't they? And have a look at them in friendlies and get them involved with the first team, which I think Paul Rayner mentioned as well. But yeah, all in all, I think it was a really worthwhile exercise again.
Yeah.
It was certainly a lot more positivity regarding this one and a lot less apprehension, like you mentioned. And we had another chat with Steve and Paul at the end, and they're all very approachable, weren't they?
Yeah, there's another member of staff there, lady, what's her name? I can't think of her name. Kelly, yes. that
Or
was
Kerry.
it.
Kelly or yeah,
Kelly,
it
I
seems to,
think.
I'm not sure what her
She
role
seemed-
is, but
yeah, she seemed very approachable. And
they was all willing to chat again and have a photo taken. And again, it comes back to the fact that they've come in and created this feel-good factor around a football club, and we know that there's still people that won't step foot inside the ground all the time he's involved with us, but you're missing out, bottom line.
agreed.
But that's your choice, so we'll end it on that note. Apologies for the setup tonight. We look like a low-budget Queen album cover. Sorry for the light going off halfway through the video, but it means you don't have to look at our faces so much. Yeah, really enjoyable evening, one that was worthwhile and one that we're both glad we attended. We'll be back Saturday, all 3 of us,
Yep. Yeah.
for Gillingham versus Wimbledon. So we hope you've enjoyed this second video of today, or Friday morning, depending when I put this out. But yeah, hope you've enjoyed the video. Check out the match preview that's already live on the channel, and we'll be back Saturday for Match Day Live. Until next time,
Up the Gills.
up the Gills.